And by the time the results of the 2000 census came out, it was very apparent that this was now a major demographic shift that was happening. People were living longer, and people were coming here from elsewhere in the Mid-Atlantic region. Some of them were coming in, maybe one of the two spouses would come in, the other one would do a shortened week and commute back and forth, but eventually they would retire here. And with them, they brought in their new needs and wants. They brought their ability to purchase things, so they knew what they wanted. They had the ability to buy them, so it was bringing in opportunities, but at the same time, it was also bringing challenges. The Shore's services for the 50-plus population were limited in scope, and while our from-here population did not know how to access some of those services, the arriving population knew very well and demanded not only quantity, but they demanded quality. So a little bit of a friction happened, and then when you layer on top of that, the reality that immigration started also happening on the Shore, and some of those early immigrants were bringing in their parents, and now language and culture issues were being layered in, it became interesting. So Gray Shore, the initiative, the coalition of, at the time, about 75 organizations, became very interested in creating a report that said, okay, what's going on? What do we have? What do we need? And how do we go about getting what we don't have? Issues. Now, what are the issues? We have obviously elder care issues. These are from adult non-medical daycare to adult daycare to various health needs, geriatric care, the health caregivers, family caregivers, all those issues to deal with the issues that come along with aging, mobility issues, people not being able to drive, there not being public transportation enough for them, what transportation there exists might not be handicap accessible, or for insurance reasons, the drivers cannot help them get in and off the vehicles, etc. All these issues were part of this elder care pot that the coalition looked at. The second issue is elder shelter. The gold standard in aging is to be able to age in place. You want to be able to stay at your home as long as possible. And very quickly we realized that the infrastructure needed to make that happen was not in place. That infrastructure is both a human resource infrastructure. These are occupational therapists that come visit you, physical therapists that come visit you, healthcare individuals come and visit you, maybe a nurse, occasionally a doctor. So instead of you as the senior going from one location to the other, which is currently the case, most of the services come to you. But that's not enough. Your house or your apartment or your location has to be retrofitted to be senior friendly. In the 60s and 70s and even in the 80s, when a house was being built, if you had a little bit of money, you would put in plush carpeting. Well, plush carpeting is the enemy of a senior. It's difficult to use with a walker, it's difficult to use with a wheelchair, it's difficult to use with crutches, etc., etc. Then there was the issue of providing incentives for developers to build these so-called universal design houses and or developments, and age-restricted developments, etc. If you look at the aging population on the Shore, the profile of the population versus the availability of elder-friendly housing, we are way, way, way behind our counterparts in the urban area. So there has to be some kind of incentive mechanism for the developer to want to build that, because it's a little bit more expensive to build, and the assurance that it's going to be sold or rented appropriately. Part of the reason why the solutions are not coming as fast as they should have been coming has to do with the recession and the very long recovery we went through. If that recession had been one of the normal recessions we have seen in the past 50 years, the recovery would have been faster and a lot of these things would be put in place. When something is a little bit more expensive to build and there is a credit crunch, the developer is not going to be able to, A, want to do it, and B, going to be able to get funding to do it. So therein comes the need for public funding. Public funding, there's no political will for it, even though the senior population can make or break a candidate's future political career. We never intended to be a political coalition. We intended to be a policy coalition. We still are going to remain a policy coalition, but a policy coalition is without teeth if it doesn't have a friendly political coalition behind it. So some of our coalition members individually are organizing the political muscle, if you will, behind it to gently suggest to the elected officials that these are good investments, because the cost of taking care of a senior who is not living in home is so much more, and the burden on the taxpayer is so much more that it's kind of penny wise, pound foolish when you think about it. We have made more progress on the elder care side than we have on the elder shelter side. But the most progress we have made is in the elder opportunity side. We have a very large number of individuals who come from the urban areas to here to the shore, to the rural area. And initially they love the rural bucolic lifestyle. They love going and golfing, fishing, hunting, hiking, biking, whatever that attracted them in the weekends. But pretty quickly they become aware of the fact that 365 days of a weekend gets boring. And these are people who are, on average, healthier than from here seniors. They have higher education attainment, they have higher net worth, higher disposable income, and less of a network, social network here, and less of an entertainment and social life network compared to where they came from. So quickly it becomes apparent that for their quality of life to be at its optimal level, they're going to want to do something else. And we have created all kinds of networks, all kinds of opportunities for these individuals to either come in as angel investors in companies, volunteer executives or paid executives, part-time executives in companies, more like consultants. We have created all kinds of volunteer opportunities for them to bring their know-how to nonprofit organizations. We're still scratching the surface, but the progress we have made compared to where we were in the past decade is pretty phenomenal. And now, if a senior knows where to look, there are all kinds of opportunities for them to volunteer, to become involved, to invest, to get part-time employment, etc. The problem is in that phrase I just used, which is if they know where to look. We have not yet completed that loop, closed that loop of us reaching out to them and saying, here, this is where it is. So the next challenge for us is to find the resources necessary to be able to connect all these dots and maybe have a portal such as the one you guys are working on. Exactly. Why do we start with 50 plus? Two reasons. One, ARP. It gives us a nice database of people, and ARP does a wonderful job of collecting data. Two, on the shore, it makes sense because we have pre-retirees coming to the shore. People who live in the urban area start with a weekend home or a summer place, and they start coming longer and longer and longer. And as I said, one member of the family retires early, establishes that as the main residence, the other one commutes back and forth. So we start tracking people at 50 because about that time they make their decisions to come to the shore. We're going to have the power. We tend to vote more than the younger generation. A lot of the elected officials are our peers. And, by our power of vote, we control the budgets. Yeah. It's interesting, you'll go to all these no tax increases areas, the profile of the electorate, it's us. And we're the ones telling our representatives no taxes, but we're also the ones saying, give us more police, give us more ambulance, give us more hospitals, etc. Well, these cost money. And we believe the solution is not through political parties, because this is going to have to be a bipartisan issue. The seniors are coming from both sides. So we believe the solution is to create a new organization or a coalition of new organizations that are solely focused on these senior types issues. AARP has done this very well at the national level. We need to either partner with AARP or create local organizations that bring the seniors to fun social events where we explain these asks from policy decision makers, both at the public sector and the private sector and even nonprofit, so that they become acutely aware that not only the market is there, but the demand and the directive, the mandate is there. We are seeing in the future a lot of tugs of war between school funding and funding for senior-friendly activities. Whereas if you look at Europe, where some of these issues have been already handled, schools become part of the solution for the seniors. Schools need all kinds of volunteers. Schools need all kinds of helpers. Schools need all kinds of committee members, board members, boosters, etc. Who has more time than us to be able to do this? So if we become friends of the school and have something very positive to do and have an investment in the next generation above and beyond our children and grandchildren, great. And a lot of the come here seniors, their grandchildren are not here. They're still in the urban area. So the local school system is an alien concept to them. You know, they let their children worry about the school system where they live. And they're done with their children. They're graduated. They're have their jobs. They're married. So we need to re-engage these seniors. From here seniors have never been as engaged as their urban counterparts. You know, they had lower educational, on average, lower educational attainment and life struggles of their own. So becoming engaged in, say, school boards, et cetera, was a luxury. We need to bring them into the fold as well. And their faith-based organizations are a great friend. That's where they do have a lot of comfort. And faith-based organizations can become more solution providers than they currently are. They are great solution providers out of necessity, but organizations such as the United Way are working with these faith-based organizations to be able to show them where the needs are and ways in which those needs can be fulfilled by not only the faith-based organizations, but their congregants, by the seniors who tend to make the majority of their members. And because it costs in the aggregate the public sector more money to deal with institutional aging, in my opinion, you need to shift some of those resources in the form of block grants or incentives to the developers who are going to make aging in place easier. The problem is, while it costs us, the taxpayer, more, the silos where those monies reside are either legislatively or for regulatory reasons, are prohibited from making those shifts. This is why it's going to require it's not just a shore issue, it's a very large national conversation that is going to have to take place. We have the money. In fact, we're wasting money when you think about it. The solutions that are in place are cheaper if you can shift some of those resources from the very expensive care and shelter to a lot less expensive and a lot higher quality of life. The current polarized political environment is very caustic. And it's just as caustic at the local levels as it is at the national level. And it's going to take one of two things. It's going to take either things are going to get much, much worse before they get better, or there's going to be a game changer, some kind of disruption in the economy that is not related to this, that is going to force all of us to rethink everything.